We're back. Another episode time. However, there's only two of the three, Musketeers, Wolfpack? What do you want to call it?
I like Wolfpack.
Wolfpack. You said that last time.
Mm-hmm. Wolfpack's, I just like it because I like the movie.
Three Stooges.
And I like Three Stooges, too.
Well, let's start there. If we were Three Stooges, who's who?
I'm definitely Shep.
I was going to say you were definitely Curly.
I knew that you were going down that road.
Yeah, man. We're back. Another episode. We've got another phone in today from the Bay Area down in Florida. Two guests today. It's going to be a lot of fun because I have a feeling we're gonna just run the gamut from classic U.S. soccer history as a player, as a coach, and fast forward into the 21st. I had this little thing the other day. We can't really say we're in the 21st century anymore because we're like 23 years into the 21st century. But we're advanced well beyond Y2K, right? So what's a fair statement? What do you say? Like, talking about the future, the current state, how it's so much further past the past.
I would just say that we're in the infant stages of the 21st century.
Infant stages?
Yeah.
23 years? I mean, there's a lot of humans that have been born in the last 23 years.
I would say that I'm probably 3/4 away through my life just because of the way I live it. And if we're
I agree, Curly.
only a quarter of the way through our next century's life, I think infant stages work.
Yeah, I don't know. I completely shifted gears there because I started to say the other day, somebody said something about a piece of technology, and I'm like, hey, welcome to the 21st. And then I realized that was a dumb statement. Because the technology we're talking about is like literally in the past two years, I don't know. We need to come up with something. We need to claim the rights to the new, it's the 21st century saying. Yeah. Because people during the Great Depression, they didn't say, hey, welcome to the 20th century. This is the problems. That was 22 years later.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Digress. Want to kick this off. We've been so lucky to have support from not only you, the listeners, and let me remind you, if you're listening, literally the nicest thing you could ever do for us is write a review. Because apparently Apple, Spotify, those reviews, those are gold. It's like a $20 tip. And you don't even need to reach into your wallet. Just put one sentence.
Like, I love Jared.
That's it. I love Jared. I love barbecue and
the biggins.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, that would go a really long ways. But we also have actual supporters in the form of our buddies Chris and Bill and crew over at thepinnacleloans.com. Big news today. I immediately thought of them. Fed came out, said, you know what? We look pretty good. In fact, next year we think we're looking at least 3 rate cuts. And then all of a sudden, in the span of 1 hour,
the market went shithouse.
Oh my God, it was crazy. So
it's just amazing to me in our financial community. It's really not amazing to me, but this dude can come out and speak and by the tone of what he speaks or by the facts of what he says, the market goes haywire either way on whatever he says. And everything he said today, it's been pretty accurate, and the market responded today because of the the glass half full type shit going on next year. Yeah, no, I mean it's one of those things. The interest rate number, the 2-year, 5-year, 10 years that heavily influence banks and lending. Guys like
pinnacleloans.com. The partners that they work with, those rates, those things tomorrow morning when you wake up, they're going to be significantly lower because it's moving. So anyway, I want to thank those guys for supporting the show, and we're going to get to our pinnacle points in a second. But the new lover of the show, supporter of the show, we've got the Explore STL, just a tremendous organization. Which brings me to, I'm going to fast track into this. We've rolled out this new little piece, shtick, whatever we want to call it, called the Explore Trifecta, where we pick a neighborhood and then let you, the listener, know kind of like our picks for where to sleep, what to eat, what to do in those neighborhoods. And in honor of our host today, because we had to move it around a little bit since we were dialing in, we're down here in the Grove. The Grove on Manchester between Shoto and Van Deventer and Kings Highway at Urban Chestnut Brewing Company, which you've stated over and over again. It's your favorite beer.
It's delicious. I mean, this Balkan Street box lager, just come try it. Just do yourself a favor. And you don't have to necessarily get this one, but if you do, you'll thank me. And they have many more that are delicious.
So we're going to jump right into it. And I'm going to get the kind of the easy part out of the way, where to stay. Because Barnes and everything is so close, there are tons of cool, affordable hotels close by, nice new ones, H2 Suites, things like that are right here in the neighborhood. That's the easy one. Just Google the Grove hotels. You're going to get a whole list of them. Stay wherever you want to stay, because everything that we're about to talk about is walkable. I'll go first. Things to do.
Okay.
And you're going to do the food. This neighborhood prides itself on festivals and events. The largest Oktoberfest is here at Urban Chestnut. We blocked the block off, and it's massive. It's a blast. It's 3 days. You know, you also have Grove Fest, which you guys just recently worked. Which, I mean, it's just a party. Call it what it is. It's a party. You got the World Naked Bike rides through the neighborhood here, and things get crazy. It's just one of those neighborhoods that follow the Grove on any social media platform. Look for the events. You're going to have options and plenty of places, especially our friends here at Urban, to kind of stop and rehydrate. And then when you're down here, what are you going to eat? And I have a feeling I know where you're going.
Well, I'm going to go two places. First off, I'm going to give love to where you just gave love to. We are at UCBC in the Grove. If you like New York-style pizza, and you like a slice, you absolutely have to get their pizza because
it's got the flop.
It does have the flop. It's delicious. It has good taste. Fill our listeners in. The crust isn't just your average Joe crust. What is the crust?
No. It came from. It was originated from bakery around the corner. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank.
Well, you think
Union
about
Loafers.
that.
Union Loafers.
Yeah, you're right. Union Loafers does the crust fresh. It's just phenomenal. And then they also have your normal German fare.
So I thought you were going to go with.
You know where I'm going next.
Sandwiches.
If you live in St. Louis, if you're within 100 miles of St. Louis, and if you have not been to Gramophone, you are doing yourself and your family a disservice. They have the most delicious sandwiches. Always they have live music. What I've been doing now, because I went through the whole menu, I just go there and I get the daily special. and you cannot go wrong. Their sandwiches, if you follow them on social media and you just see a picture of their sandwiches, you will wet your pants.
Yeah, so the Gramophone is definitely, there's big debates in all communities about their food scene, et cetera. In St. Louis, we are known, one of the things, I would argue that we're more known for here locally, and we debate sandwich shops over the whole St. Louis style pizza or whatever. I think, because you got the Hill and you've got
Blue City
and then Gramophone. Yeah, you're anywhere near the neighborhood and you're running around, come down to the city, go to Gramophone in the Grove, get yourself a sandwich.
We get nothing from Gramophone for saying this, so we're just calling a spade a spade. Here's what I will say. I have a kid living with me from Oklahoma City, and if we're within 50 miles and it's time to eat, he wants to go to Gramophone.
Yeah. So that's our Explore Trifecta. We actually tossed out We boxed up a quad there, I believe. Come down the Grove, check it out. World of news, things that we typically touch on a little bit. We tend to do it through our pinnacle points of the day. Easy way for us to speak our mind as far as what's going on. I got a lot going through my head. What's yours?
I got
you
two.
go first today. What you got?
You go ahead, because I'll react to it, because I have two that I really want to touch on.
So the one, STL City, we're a little soccer news. STL City today announced there was a big trade with Nashville. And I was looking for player names and everything else. And shame on me, I just didn't read the post. And it was a trade. But it was St. Louis gets a foreign player slot, and Nashville got in the trade I don't even remember, 175,000 in TAM money, so they get this real/artificial money for a artificial player spot. So, but it was like big news in the trade for the team, which tells me they're being strategic. You know, they probably already have somebody targeted because they were, I believe, at their limit of foreign players. So making that trade, they're going to go overseas again, fill another slot.
And I want to piggyback on their movement specifically. The young 6 defensive holding mid that we picked up, the Durkin kid, who has national team minutes, youth national team minutes.
You know who he's got a relationship with?
Who's that?
Professional relationship with.
Who's that?
Friend of the show.
Greg?
Yep. Mr.
That's
Drozdon.
wonderful. Mr. Droz, we'll be talking. Here's what I will say. Jury's out, and we can all have opinions on this show or other shows on great, good, better, not good. But here's what I will say. That's a spot on our field where we need minutes, especially with the amount of competitions we have and with our other 6 going to play international minutes. That is a spot that we need. We need depth there.
Yep. No, I'm with you. What's your pinnacle point of the day?
My pinnacle point of the day is I'm going to go off of soccer. I'm going to do 2, but my first one is our St. Louis Blues coach gets the axe last night. After a Detroit Red Wings game at home, we lose 4 straight. I'm going to leave it like this. This is a soccer show, so we're not going to get too much into it. But Doug Armstrong's calling the shots there. For me, Doug, that's your fall guy, because our lack of results is not coaching. It's the lack of the roster you put together. And so I understand in this game it's a business and you got to win. But I don't know that that's the right. I mean, that guy brought us our only Stanley Cup. Yeah,
and he'll go down in Blues history as that guy, as that coach. I'll be honest. I just don't follow a lot of hockey, Blues hockey in particular. But when I read that headline, I was really surprised because it seems like, again, it's a scapegoat. I think that's a perfect word for it.
Last thing, real quick, because we got to run here. Champions League, match day 6 today. Yeah. Pulisic comes on, scores, ties it up in the second half. They get a late winner by goal differential because PSG beats Borussia. They go to Europa, so AC Milan does not go into the round of 16. But I like that in your club, all these people bad-mouthing Christian Pulisic over the years. What does he do? He goes to AC Milan, and he's been their best player to date.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was never anti-Pulisic. I was just anti-Pulisic on Chelsea.
Okay.
Because I think that the system, the stress of that league in particular, I wanted him to get minutes, and he was never going to get minutes in England.
Okay.
He goes to Milan.
Touche.
Getting the minutes, and he's playing in big games, and it's set up for him.
Yes.
So, and it only helps the U.S. national team going into 2026 and beyond.
Good segue, U.S. national team.
Yeah. So, without further ado, because we've got our guest dialing in today from the Tampa Bay region. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to do a quick refill down here at Urban Chestnut. And when we come back, we're going to have we got a twofer. So maybe Zach decided to get out of the way today just to allow for the 4th voice. Because that's usually how it rolls out, right? You down with that?
Yeah, I'm down.
All right, here we go. We're going to roll out. What do you think of the music, by the way?
It's heavy guitar. You know I like it.
Skid Row, man. 18 in Life. I Remember You. Remember these?
This is my early high school days.
This is roller skating rink music here, right?
Yep, you're right.
All right, man. We're going to do this. We're going to be right back. Thanks for listening. Hey, everyone. Buying a home, it's kind of a big deal. Never has there been more competition to buy, so few homes to choose from, all made worse by an uncertain interest rate landscape. Now that you're short a bedroom for the third kid, you're in the wrong school district, and a walkable corner pub isn't nearly close enough, it's time to reach out to the Pinnacle Loan Team for help. They work with a network of agents that have their feet on the ground across the whole region and have a number of loan products that are cost-effective with a process that is simple. Basically, they've got you covered from start to finish. So when it's time to buy, visit thepinnacleloans.com. That's thepinnacleloans.com. Simply the best in home loans.
Hey everybody, the fall outdoor season's over, the high school season's over, and everything outside just looks gray and dreary. So, if you're still looking for a soccer fix, head out to the Family Arena and go check out some indoor soccer brought to you by St. Louis and Bush. Check it out, hit them up on social media, hit them up online, go get your tickets, family friendly, and keep up with the pace, keep the kids busy, and we will catch you next time. See ya.
Do that again. Are you the ch girl?
Yeah, I'm the air drum guy, the sound effect guy.
Kind of like a doo-wop girl from Motown, only ch.
Have you noticed, because you have a kid, these kids that are listening to hip-hop days, these 15-year-olds, hip-hop these days, there's so many sound effects. You know the sound effect that I like the best in these songs? They do.
Oh, I hate that.
All the time. What are they doing?
Because they can't sing or write. So they come up with artificial sounds. Rolling us back in straight from break, playing a little Tom Petty in honor of our two guests that are down in Florida, because Tom Petty is a good old Florida boy.
Is he a Jacksonville guy?
Was a Florida boy.
No, Gainesville boy.
Gainesville.
He's from
Gainesville.
Yeah,
Big fan. Yeah.
Up north. So playing a little Florida rock and roll here. And you've already heard one of the voices here. We're just going to jump right in. We're going to introduce our guest today. We've got from Florida, originally from North County, right? We got Florissant or Ferguson? Florissant, Missouri, the Mr. Perry Vanderbeek. And from New York, I believe upstate New York, correct? We have Mr. David Wilson.
Correct.
Look at that. We did that's the only homework we did today. So we got you.
Very good.
Hey, guys, thanks for joining us, man. Really looking forward to the conversation. Appreciate you taking a little time out to chat with us, two stooges today. Usually there's three of us, but our third, where is Zach, by the way? Do you know?
Believe he's in the Big Apple.
Yeah, that's right. He's in New York.
He's in Manhattan for work, and I would imagine he gets that espresso martini. I bet you he's having espresso martinis.
I bet you it costs him $28 a piece.
Have you ever ordered an espresso martini in your life?
No. If I do, slap me. So.
Yeah, those are tasty.
Perry likes them. Zach, you got a fan.
There you go. Well, hey, guys, thanks for joining us. Really looking forward to today. As I mentioned before we kind of popped on the line here, I think to kind of keep things a little bit on the rails, because there's so many things we could talk about. Perry, I'd actually like to start with you, just kind of hit the St. Louis space, kind of bring everybody up to speed, because your name is a household name in the households that understand and know the game of soccer here in the Lou. So kind of, if you don't mind, just take a couple seconds here and refresh us on the hometown, which we just talked about. Look, got to do the high school thing, because obviously that's what we do. Sure. And kind of take us on a little bit of a soccer path with you.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you. So obviously I grew up in Florissant, Missouri. And again, I first started playing soccer in the CYC. And the grade school that I played for was St. Savina. And again, it's up in North County. So that's where I started, and started in the clinic. You know, you got your 5-6 years old, you're wearing Reader's Digest or shin guards and the whole works. And a lot of the parents that were were up there coaching us were kind of volunteers. And some had a little bit of a soccer background. You could strike the ball hard, but it wasn't really like they were showing us any kind of technical skill or anything. But that was the start. And believe it or not, in the St. Sabina tournament that ran for almost 30 something years, we won the Bantam division. And then just my older brother played. So, and again, my mom played. My mom played in 1950
Oh, really?
for Craig. So that was one of the very first, I think, women's leagues in the country.
Where did she play?
She played in St. Louis for Craig Club, Craig. And, there's a big historical article about it that Dave Lang did in Soccer Made in St. Louis.
Okay.
And that was in 1950. So a little bit of background there. And, my mom and both my parents were always encouraging for my brother and I to play sports, whether it be soccer, baseball. I love the sport of hockey. So you got the Blues emblem up there. That's very cool. And so again, you're starting 5-6-year-old in the clinic, and then you start playing as it continued to grow. The landscape back then wasn't nowhere near what it is now.
Right.
But, after we got to like 6th, 7th grade, playing in, the CYC leagues and, the city championships and things like that, I just, my passion kept growing for the game. And again, it was never a chore for me to go outside, and work with the ball or anything like that. So a couple things happened to me where when I was playing for my school team, I had the opportunity to play with, it was actually in the Corey League. And in the Corey League, the team that I played for, one of my teammates was Timmy Gelker. And of course,
wow.
Bob Gelker.
Yeah.
So here I'm at, 7th, 8th grade, and, I get to meet Timmy Gelker, and, him and I just became very, very close. And what we did was, we were always, if we weren't playing soccer, we were always watching it. His dad would invite us to play, sit on the bench when SIU was playing St. Louis University at the Bronze Boot game down at Busch Stadium. And then after that, it just got to be the point where, obviously with the neighborhood, playing in club, playing in the Corey League, now club soccer became very big. It was right at the start. And I had the opportunity to play with, some of the coaches that I can't say enough of where they put me in my career. I'll start with Ben, Dan Gaffney, Bobby O'Leary,
Tommy Howe. Yeah.
Yep. John Schafferin, Tim Rooney, all those gentlemen were my coaches throughout my junior playing club ball. And again, I always tell players that, you got to become a student of the game. And that's one thing. If I wasn't playing the game, I was always watching it. So, it was guys like Bobby O'Leary and Tim Rooney taking me down to, Condolet Park or St. Mary Magdalene to watch some of the senior games. You're watching Big Four Chevrolet, Kudus, A&A Kickers. And again, it just, that was soccer. You're just always around it. I was in the stands watching games with Pat McBride, with Mr. Gelker's father. All right. And that was my Sunday afternoon. So obviously, now we go into high school soccer, and, Vince Drake was our coach. He was a very good coach. And I think it was in 1976, 77, I got a call from U.S. Soccer to invite me to come to a U17 camp. And it was during the summer. And obviously went to the camp in the summertime.
So let me ask you a question about that, because I love to put a little frame of reference on it, because you mentioned your parents were obviously super supportive of you playing sports, any sport, but obviously soccer. I mean, if you're getting that phone call, you're excelling. And, it's really rare to hear somebody say of that generation in particular that their mom played as well. So obviously there was a love and a passion for the game in your house. Talk to us about that phone call. If you are 16 years old at the time, number one, there's no cell phones. It's not like you got an email, opened it up. That house phone rings. How excited were they? Or were they shocked? Were you shocked? Was it, because there was passion for the game? Because we've talked to a lot of other individuals that get the similar call as you, that have come from houses where soccer wasn't, revered in the household. So how cool was it for them and you to get that call?
Well, and again, JB, thanks for pointing that out, because it was very interesting. When I got the call, it was right at the beginning of summertime, and gentleman calls. He says, "I'm with U.S. Soccer." He says, "Your names come across," because again, like you said, there was no internet, there was no emails, no cell phones, and basically, you found out about other players just through communication with coaches, whether it be high school coaches, college coaches, the recruiters and things like that. So when they called me, obviously the discussion was, hey, look, we're getting ready to, go on a trip here. And, when, obviously want you in the camp and, we're going to meet in, I think, in 3 weeks and in doing so. And, I was just listening and obviously very excited and, thought, okay, here's a great opportunity. The last question he had for me was, he says, by the way, when is your birthday? I told him and he says, unfortunately, he says, I think you're maybe too old for this. I says, okay. He says, hey, that's okay. You know what? Don't worry about it. We got to, there'll be other plenty of opportunities, but, want to let you know you're on the radar and, obviously, you got a good recommendation and, we'll see what happens. I said, okay. And again, JB, the next day they called me and says, no, look, he said, we made a mistake. He says, you are eligible for the trip. I said, oh, okay, thank God. Because I think in Europe, they kind of went with, like the rest of the world, being the actual going by the year. And
calendar
like
year, yeah.
Year, yeah. So, went on the first trip to Germany. And again, you're meeting all these different players. And I was up in Princeton University. And that's when Bob Bradley was actually, he was going to school there. And because he's a couple years older than I was. And we were just on the campus there. And there was a couple other St. Louisans on the team, myself, Johnny Hayes, and Jimmy Tegens. And then we went over to Germany, had the trip. And then we came back. This was my senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. So it was very unfortunate because back then there was a rule that you could not play on your high school team and another team.
Full circle here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to make a decision. All right. That's all changed. But I had to make a decision, do I play with the U.S. team or do I see out my high school senior year and playing the state championship?
Wait.
Okay.
So
that was a hard decision.
Was that a real decision?
Yeah.
No. So,
well, again, you know what? I tell you what, our high school team, credit to the players and the coaches and all my teammates. We were successful. We won 2 state championships when I was there in the 4 years. And again,
that was Aquinas or?
Yeah, St. Thomas Aquinas up in North County.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, that's where it's so important for me. And we get into this later about, high school soccer and what it means to people that go to high school and, you're playing for your school. You represent your school and, you got all your teammates, all your classmates. And it's, it was super cool. And, obviously having to make the decision that myself and John Hayes both made. So we went to play in a tournament in France. It was in Monaco. And here we are in 1977 in Monaco, France. And we're playing at the Parc des Princes.
So
in Monaco.
In 1977, were French women pretty then too? for a teenager?
Actually, yeah, we were staying at the Principality right there at the Lowe.
Oh my
God! They
God!
had the Grand Prix.
So how much of a culture shock was it for you? Because I mean, look, St. Louis is a great town, but it's not Paris. It's not Monaco. What was that like at that age? You're traveling with your nation's team, and you're going to pinnacle places.
Yes.
Did you handle it well, poorly? Were you just kind of part of the system? What was that like?
JB, I was on my best behavior. Okay, I was just so honored to represent my country. And things that you work for in the game every day. I mean, some things I didn't bring up to you, gentlemen, is back in the day there was Burt Ranch Soccer Camp, and a lot of the coaches, Miguel de Lima, Bobby O'Leary, Bruce Hudson, these guys are my coaches at the soccer camp. It was just so cool. And anyway, when I was in 8th grade, I went to a soccer camp in Indiana, and the coaches were Jerry Yeagley, Bob Dowdy from Akron, and Bob Gelker. And that was like their first residential soccer camps that they were presenting. And here I am in 8th grade.
Yep.
The counselor at the camp was George Nanchoff, and 4 years later, him and I were playing in the national team together. He was my counselor.
Wow.
Yeah.
So to move the story here a little bit,
okay.
You come back and you just mentioned some of those college names. You become the first American high schooler to be drafted into the NASL, correct?
Yes.
Then take that story from there, because that first off is a first, and that's a feat alone.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. So what happened was Francisco Marcos, who has just been inducted into the Soccer Hall of Fame this year, him and one of the other staff members from the Rowdies were actually on the trip in Monaco. And it was a couple other NASL scouts, guy from Minnesota, Peter Short, Ray Klavecka from the Cosmos. So when I come back, I'm starting getting phone calls that, hey, look, you know what? If we decide to, spend a draft pick on you, I mean, what's your intentions? I says, well, I'm open for conversation. And also, you had the St. Louis Stars, and at the time when John Sewell was the coach, and my agent at the time was Steve Franks, who played for the St. Louis Stars.
That's
So
crazy.
it was all St. Louis. We actually sat down, had a meeting, and that got me even more interested of the opportunity. So, and St. Louis had the second pick. And they said, look, regardless, you got options. You're going to play in college. You can play professionally. We're going to draft you. We're just going to give you a heads up. So, we enjoyed spending time with you and your parents, and here we go. So now I'm sitting in school one day, and I didn't realize the draft was happening that day. So also I got a call to come to the office. And when I went to the office, they said, your parents are on the phone because, there's a press conference and they'd like you to be present. And I says, oh, okay, great. And again, this is now in January of 78. And it says, you've been drafted by the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, and I got to tell you, gentlemen, this is, quick story here is because of my relationship with some of my coaches, Bobby O'Leary was actually at the time playing for the St. Louis Stars. So he would take me to practice. And the head coach, he would say, hey, look, you know what? I don't know that you're here because, again, if they find out, you could lose your college eligibility. He says, yeah, no problem. It's not. And they were training down at Francis Field. And, I knew then that, always trying to, play it at a higher level because in St. Louis, it is so competitive. All the players, there's so many good players from St. Louis. You just kind of stayed playing at your own level. To play up was, that was a bonus.
I'm glad you mentioned that because
yes.
When you say the St. Louis portion of it, so we're talking 1978 right now, and just a snapshot of those couple 3 years, trying to just piece through the timeline. You go to Tampa. So what's going on for our listeners here is you get into that 1978 to 1980 era, and if we're talking about St. Louis, the kids you played it with went to SIUE. Well, they won a national championship in '79. You made the Olympic team, which we, I guess we boycotted because it was in Russia. But on that Olympic team, there was 7 kids from St. Louis, or 8, 9 maybe even, that were starters on that Olympic team. That whole thing was just littered with St. Louis names. And so that time frame of 78 to 80 in that neighborhood, when you're cutting your teeth professionally, I mean, how big was it for St. Louis in your eyes?
Oh, let me take it a step further. I was just in St. Louis last week at the 1-2-3 banquet. And on Saturday afternoon, I was having lunch with Matt Malloy, who actually scored all 3 goals in the final. So, you got, there's, I think, 9 from that team that played professionally, or 10. That was just on Facebook the other day. Tommy Gorick, Bobby Bizzata, Mike Twellman, Don Ebert, Timmy Gelker. It was loaded. And again, just, even with the Pan American team in 1979, all those guys with that, the Olympic team. And, those guys actually, after they won the championship, I think they played at Hardship, went on, got drafted professionally, and their professional career started. So, and again, very, very successful. A lot of those guys played with the Steamers, the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, Kansas City. And again, we had wonderful, wonderful coaches from St. Louis. Starts with the colleges with Harry Keel, but you talk about Pat McBride, Rick Ben professionally. It was just, that was it. And to this day, when you say you're from St. Louis, a lot of people, they say, that's a level just to start with. And I'm very proud to say that I'm St. Louis. I moved down here in 78. I've always kept my residence here. But again, I'll use the term that Taylor Twellman used when he was talking about MLS, and Don Garber and bringing, St. Louis City to St. Louis. He says, I was born in Minnesota, but I was made in St. Louis. And I feel the same way. I mean, if it wasn't for my roots in St. Louis, I would never be in this position. It starts with my coaches, my teammates, everything like that. So that's, I always look back with that and honor those guys and have so much respect for all those players that I've played with and even how it continues today. I'm so proud of St. Louis City, what they've done in the first year.
Let me ask you one more question, and then I'd like to bring David into the conversation, and we'll pivot over to, because this lane of history and value, it's really lending itself to the high school conversation that we've kind of alluded to. But what I want to ask you about is, talking about this legacy of all these St. Louis names that you just were dropping, and a couple months ago, U.S. national team had the friendly here in St. Louis, and you know where I'm going with this. It was the invite for all the players that have capped from St. Louis, and I believe the number was 76. Yeah, 76. 76 players. Put that moment, put that number into context in two ways. Number one, what it meant for you to know that you're part of that club, a truly elite, special club in American soccer. But two, the other side of it, I'm wondering how you would describe what that really means to other soccer markets.
It's hard to compare to other soccer markets. I mean, they try to say in Los Angeles and New York, there's more players, but again, they're not all born and raised there. I'm not saying they're not from New York, but I don't think they were born and raised there. Right. And actually, JB, I flew in for that game just to be honored. That's awesome. And here I am standing next to, they have some alphabetical order. So I'm standing next to Timmy Twellman, and you got Greg Villa, you got Denny Vanager. I mean, I watched these guys growing up. Okay, I was a ball boy for the St. Louis Stars. I chased balls behind the net at SIU. All right, so I paid my dues because he always says, you want to be a student of the game. So just watching, the Pat McBrides and Al Trost. I mean, those were two of my favorites. Because I played in the midfield, and that's who I wanted to emulate. You grow up, and all of a sudden, and here I am at the 1-2-3 banquet. I went last year, and I just went this year, and obviously at my table and sitting next to me on Friday night was Al Trost. And again, it's just an honor to to be around these guys, and I have so much respect.
What an ace that guy is.
Yeah, I mean, it's first class.
Can I ask you this question? Sure. In my quick research, just by trying to get to know you over a computer screen a little bit, here's what I want to ask you before we bring David on. Your national team career, because we talked about the early '80s, and then we tried to qualify for 2 World Cups in the mid '80s. You were a big part of that. It says you have 23 caps, and I understand as a federation we do things different now than we did, especially with economics. But like 23 caps. If you were playing for that longevity and you were an important role like you were then, now you'd probably have 200 caps. Can you speak on like going to Azteca and getting there the day before you play when it's 5,000 feet in the air and then just playing a game? Because, these guys are World Cup qualifying. You show up for 3 days and then you just play a game, to qualify for a World Cup. It's so different now. It's just 23 caps amazes me for the length of time that you were in the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, we talk about the landscape being changed right now, because back then the player pool wasn't as big as it is now. And again, we didn't play as many games as they do now. Okay. Because, we had the international dates and sometimes it would fluctuate. CONCACAF wasn't as strong as it is now. So a lot has changed over the years. But you're right. When you go into these qualifiers, you're playing and you're getting together maybe 6-7 days before you start. You're coming in from your club team. And at that time, even the second go around, we're getting players that are coming from the indoor. And again, that's, trying to go from the indoor to the outdoor and play international soccer. It just didn't work. But again, it just, unfortunately, we played Costa Rica in Costa Rica. We tied them 1-1, and all we needed was a tie to move forward. And unfortunately, out in California, we played that game, and they scored a goal, and that was kind of the end of it. And then the federation says, okay, look, obviously we're looking for younger players and got to go a different direction, and it took off the other way. And again, having the 23 caps, I had a couple injuries, so I thought maybe my longevity with the national team could have been longer. But I broke my 5th metatarsal, and it was obviously difficult to heal. But at the end of the day, I just it's just an honor to play for your country. And again, just trying to compare what they can do now of what we did back then. And then when I was at that game in the summertime in St. Louis, talking to some of the national team players that were before us, and just hearing their stories about like Gene Geimer, just hey, look, he says sometimes you got to bring your own shoes. They don't even supply you with shoes.
Well, we didn't have the Gold Cup. We didn't have all these competitions that they have now.
Right. Well, right. With the national team, you had Walt Chiswitz, and Walt was doing a job of maybe 9 other people right now. So again, the federation has grown, and rightly so. We are the dominant in the CONCACAF region, and I can't be more proud of our national team. In fact, I'm very excited because on coming up here in January, it's a closed door. It's going to happen right around here, but I just don't want to say anything. But and again, I had an opportunity. Somebody from the federation reached out and says, "Hey, can you help us out?" Of course, I can. So I still got very good connections in the federation, and I always want to see them. Always want to see it work.
I could stop recording for a second if you want to go ahead and let that. Hey, I think this is a good point to kind of pivot and transition into kind of your current passion as well as David's passion. Because there's a lot of like compare and contrast. You talking about your own career and the way things were back in the day. The choice you made between high school and national team, I mean, that's in today's world, that's not a decision. We know what kids today would do. But transitioning through, and the high school game that you guys are so passionate about, it's going through kind of a metamorphosis as well, because it's trying to do the dance with the just incredible explosion of the game, the popularity of the game. The numbers are going through the roof. It's outpacing all other youth sports. The quality of the kids at the youngest ages all the way up, and clubs and academies, and there's just an expansive landscape surrounding the game as it applies to that U6 up through high school and into college. So David, we're going to bring you on here, and if you wouldn't mind giving our listeners a little bit of an intro. You're from upstate New York. You're now down there in Tampa. You're a head coach, high school head coach, as well as athletic director. You guys are working together on the Champions League, which most of our listeners have heard about in previous episodes. So if you can kind of lay a little bit of the landscape as to your background and get us up to speed a little bit, then we'll start dicing it up over high school, club, etc.
All right, sounds good. My background is nowhere near where Perry's is by any means. My only connections to St. Louis basically are that my dad, who's 88 years old now, since he was 6 years old, he's been a St. Louis Cardinals fan, and we finally got to this past year. We took him for his 88th birthday to St. Louis
That's awesome.
to see a baseball game, which was phenomenal. And my other tie there is I am very close friends with your XFL coach, Anthony Beck.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. So those are my big ties with St. Louis.
Well,
for me personally,
I gotta assume every now and then you drink a Budweiser, right?
Well, that's the other tie.
There we go.
I grew up in upstate New York, and I came with from a family of basically they've supported athletics more than My dad wanted me never to get a job in high school because he wanted me to be able to play. But I was a four-sport athlete in high school, and then went to Cortland State University and played basketball and soccer, and I triple jumped for the track team when I was there. So I was always trying to keep busy. And my freshman year at Cortland, we were ranked number 2 in the country that year going in. And my first collegiate start ever was in the national semifinals game. We played UNC Greensboro. And I thought at the time, we lost the game. We had some great players with us. Frank Celiberto, who actually played for the Rowdies, I believe, back in, it would have been in probably 80. I went 82, so maybe 83, somewhere there. He got drafted by them. We just had some great players to play with, and we lost in the semifinals in overtime on a which I still believe was a handball. To this day, I can remember it. And I always thought, we'll get back there the next year. And we only got to the NCAA tournament one more time before we finished. And I was fortunate enough to finish as an All-American in college, and then got 2 years later, I was hired as a head coach at Binghamton University. I started working with Tim Shum, who was a NSCAA big person there with the NSCAA. And Tim hired me after I played against him for 4 years, and I was assistant for 1 year, but then I took over the women's program for the next 7 years and was fortunate to go to 4 NCAA tournaments with them. Coming down to Florida was a trip. Basically, I got to the point where coaching basketball and soccer in college at the same time. I was going to go to one sport as Binghamton went to Division I, and our president decided that she wanted a female head coach for basketball. So I took a job at St. Leo University, which is Division II down right here in Tampa, outside of Tampa, and coached there for a few years before I realized that I was never seeing my kids grow up. My boys were young at the time, and they both were playing on competitive teams, and it was 8v8 back then. And one day, one of them had 9 goals in the game, the other had 8, and I missed it. So I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's my life and my family and kids are more important to me than the salary is, or coaching at a higher level. So I took a job at teaching again, and went right back to coaching high school soccer. And this is my 39th year of coaching now. So
That's amazing. I, I read a couple of articles. It looks like you surpassed significant win totals. You're also coaching tennis at the same time. Is that correct?
yeah, I am. I'm a tennis coach. Very. I like the story because the first year and being the athletic director too, we didn't have anybody else that would do it. So I said, all right, I had played recreationally. I love playing tennis, and I said I would take over the team. We only had 9th and 10th graders that year when we opened school, and we went 7-5 the first year. Which, looking at it now, is like, God, what a horrible season, because our career record now is 252 wins and 20 losses. We
Oh,
won
wow.
3 state titles and a national championship, and just had Division One after Division One players have come through. And this is a public school that's just happens to be at a place where we built a program, and now when kids move from other states, they move to our school and come to play tennis for me. So I've enjoyed that a lot. At the beginning, I was just grabbing soccer players and saying, all right, you're a tennis player too now. And it helped their footwork, but they were quick, they had good feet, and they all thought it was just like a big ping pong match. So they just like, all right, it's fine. So
Well, just please tell me that you're not introducing pickleball to these kids at this age, are you?
Oh, no.
I am not. I still am a tennis guy, and I still play a lot. So I like pickleball too, but I still want to hit the ball hard and beat
Yeah.
up on the young kids. So
David, boys soccer in Tampa there. What season is it? Is it a fall sport or a spring sport?
no, it's a winter sport
It's a
here.
winter sport.
We're
Okay.
actually we're right in the middle of our season as right now, and this weekend coming up is our Champions League finals and semifinals and finals of this weekend.
Okay. And for our listeners, just curious, as we dive into this subject, Tampa's an hour and 40 minutes from Orlando, which is, I guess, the closest MLS Next club. There's X amount of boys high school soccer there in Tampa, X amount of schools. How many people or how many top level players from Tampa are in MLS academies in the state of Florida?
Well, the MLS academies are different than the MLS Next academies. The MLS academies are kids that are the elite players.
Yep.
And my belief now is that every club that had an ECNL team before has now developed an MLS Next academy, and trying to tell all these kids that they're going to get college scholarships by playing. And we just look at the rosters, and especially in the state of Florida, UCF has 3 Americans, and USF has 2 Americans on the team, and they're being sold something that may not be completely true. As a high school, as a high school coach, I support our kids' decisions. I have 7 kids right now at my high school that are playing MLS Next, so they can't play high school, and I support their decisions if they think and their family thinks that's the best option for them. But then we also show them that the number of kids that I've gotten scholarships for and help them get to go to college, doing it the same way, and they still got to wear their high school jersey on their backs during the winter season for us.
Let me get into that a little bit because I'm curious as to Perry, how you became engaged in the high school scene there with David, and then Jim Hart is the one that really kind of connected the dots here. Who's super vocal on socials and proponent of Champions League, everything else. And typically we have one of these episodes and we can reasonably expect within 24 hours a 7-paragraph summary of of the pod from Jim. So my question to you guys is, how did you cross paths, and what was it, or why did high school soccer create that connectivity and elevate the passion to do what you guys are doing currently?
Well, actually, Jim Hart reached out to me and says, "Hey, Perry," he says, "you know what? I'm sure you're aware we've got a high school Champions League. It's been going on for about 5 or 6 years, and we're having the actual Champions League draw in St. Pete. We'd like to welcome you because obviously your background, when you started playing with the Rowdies, you were drafted out of high school. I says, Jim, I would love to be part of that. So they invited the Rowdies, the head coach, a couple of their staff, a few of their players, myself, and they invited another girl that played for the U.S. national team, Danielle Fotopoulos. Unfortunately, she was not able to make it, but they had some high school coaches there. They had some players there, some media, and it was over at a restaurant called Ferg's. It's a sports bar in downtown St. Pete, right next to where the Rays play. And it was just a fantastic atmosphere. You walk there, and I didn't realize that, obviously Jim had a relationship with the owner, knew him really well, and really set things up nice. And here we are. We're just like you see on TV. We got the Champions League draw. They got the buckets that you pick out of, and they let myself and a couple of the players do that. And then they put, obviously, the teams up on the board. And you can see, and a lot of the coaches were hemming and hawing because, here's an easy group. Here's the group of death. Here, this one should be this. And just, all the banter going back and forth. So I got to talking to Jim afterwards, and I said, Jim, I says, I really like this idea. I says, is it just here in Tampa? He goes, yeah, Perry, we just started this. And, obviously I met David, and, this is what we intend to do. I says, well, look, I says, being from St. Louis, I mean, this kind of started my whole career. And I'd like to, maybe get in touch with the guys in St. Louis, and, would you help me out with that? He says, Perry, he says, feel free to do that. So I turn around and obviously hadn't played with Greg Keller's older brothers, Vince and Matt. I reached out to Greg and Mike Gavane and Terry Mickler and Vince Drake. And I says, hey guys, look, there's a concept working down here, down in Tampa. And, it's something that you guys may be interested in. So they all got back to me, and, we had the conversation, and it just took off from there. I am just so impressed. I mean, just the job that these coaches did in the amount of time that they did it, they just took it from one level to the next every month, from communication to reaching out for sponsors to getting down there with St. Louis City, with St. Louis University, talking about venues they could play at, just trying to bring this all together.
Well,
I'm just a spokesperson. Okay. David and Jim, they're the ones that put this all together. All right. They just get credit and everything that they've done. You ask them for anything, and they give you that and even more. So
I think one thing that just struck me, because I love this subject. I'm a public school kid. I grew up in Granite City. We played at Granite, two state titles there. Live that life. And now I have a child who's on the U16s with City SC, who's in that MLS Next world, and so we're living it in a parallel world. But the thing that strikes me when you talked about calling home and reaching out to the coaches here that you thought might be interested, you named names that combined probably have about 4,000 wins, maybe 30 state titles. Just insane numbers, because high school soccer it's relevant in some places, more relevant in others, but it was always super relevant here.
Yes.
And here's where I'm going with this. Having watched the soccer community since my years up to now, paying more attention to the club side, because I think the club side over this time frame did a lot. Good, bad, and different, but it constantly was evolving, figuring it out, expanding services and staffs and training and all this other stuff. Good, bad, and different, that's a whole other debate. But my point is, I noticed, and Jared, you grew up with it too, we've witnessed a ton of change and momentum, again, to be debated. But on the high school side, and I love it, it felt stagnant. It felt as if it was just really each season you're going into the same districts, you're going into the same classes, the same conferences. You don't see a lot of change. What you do see is a little bit of the spill off of more and more players that are now not eligible to play high school. But you didn't really see a lot of ideas or change being implemented within the high school community. Here comes Champions League, which we just found out about a year ago. That's cool. So I know that was a long-winded kind of intro to this question, and I pose it to either of you and both of you. Why did it take so long for high school soccer in particular to swing for something different, to implement a new idea outside of relying on experience and our baked in conferences and districts.
Right. You know what? I'll speak up real quick, David. It's just that, when I sat there and I saw this Champions League draw, I thought, you know what? This is exactly what high school soccer needs a boost. Okay. Like you said, JB, it was kind of stagnant. You know what? You had your league games, you played some tournaments, you had districts, state, and then that was it. So all of a sudden, and as I was telling to the gentleman that called me from Channel 2 News, we did a nice interview there. And I said, look, at the end of the day, when I played for Aquinas, let's call it, maybe we were a 3A school, and playing like against Hazelwood, we played them in, sometimes in a league or one off out of the conference, but we would never meet in the state championship because of the population. A 3A school and a 4A school, they just don't connect. And again, I'm jumping ahead here, but it was like now all of a sudden here in Tampa, they're going to get South Florida involved. So now not only is there going to be a Champions League, there's going to be a Super Cup. They're going to play the winners against that. So I've encouraged Greg Keller to call his coaches in Kansas City and again, get that rocking and rolling. And now next thing you know, you've got the winners of the Champions League in St. Louis playing against the winners of the Champions League in Kansas City. So again, just more and more bragging rights.
That's awesome.
But, JB,
I'm thinking maybe a Hotlanta meet between the Florida school and the Missouri school.
Yeah.
Well, again, what kind of breaks that up, JB, is right. But sometimes, like you asked, we're a winter sport.
Yeah.
I know, in back in St. Louis, it's a fall sport. So that's one thing you got to look at. It's just, they play at different times. But, again, David, take it from there.
Yeah, I think it all started back when and the reason it took so long is it takes somebody to come up with the concept of doing it, which Jim and Rob Nugent down here came up with the idea. And the first year they contacted me and Jim to get involved with them, but then Jim retired from coaching and said, all right, do you still want to do it? And I said, well, if I were to do this, I want to be able to do it big. We're going to start a Facebook page and get people to follow us from there. We're going to do a coaches poll where I'm going to send it out every week and collect things from coaches. And we're going to have a coaches poll, which includes schools that aren't in the Champions League as well. We're going to try and do everything we can for kids. And the biggest thing for me is we have a number of schools here that have maybe not as fortunate population-wise, so they have kids that can't afford to play for these big clubs and play club soccer. Yep. So we wanted to put on a first-class showcase event for these kids that are getting passed up sometimes because they can't afford to go somewhere. So we said, all right, it's going to be free. I said, we're not charging a kid a penny ever or a team ever. We're going to get sponsorships to get it done.
Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, I got two questions because you said you were 6 or 7 years into the Champions League there in the Tampa area. My first question is the governing body for high school sports in Florida. Here in Missouri, it's called MISA, and it's an acronym, Missouri State Sports Association, whatever it is, High School Sports Association. The Florida high school governing body for sports, are they on board with you folks? Is my first question.
The first that's easy to answer is we never asked them permission to do anything because we were going to do it as these games are regular season counting games for them. It's an in-season tournament, so every game they play counts along their FHSA schedule, which is our Florida High School Athletic Association.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that.
It counts for games for them. They don't care that it's in part of a tournament. The only thing that they got involved with is if we tried to determine a game by because there's a draw at the end of it for pool play, and they said if it's a draw and you go to penalty kicks, then there has to be a winner and a loser. Right?
Okay.
We decided that we were not going to go to penalty kicks, and teams were going to get a draw out of it, and therefore we put together a list of things for qualification, the tiebreakers basically, which would eliminate the need for a team to take a loss in a game that goes down to PKs in the regular season.
Okay, my second question, that's a great answer, and that's enlightening. My second question is since it's so new here in St. Louis, kind of, I wouldn't say, part of one of the disagreements here is this MLS Next or these clubs are selling, in your eyes, some of these clubs are selling, it's fake. that going to high school is still a pathway to college. My question would be, is with you being 6 or 7 years into it, and let me tell you this, I agree. There are clubs out there that are definitely saying we're going to get you to college, and it ain't right. So I will agree with that. But 6, 7 years into it, have you got college coaches back to the table at this event? Are college coaches coming to these games, deep into these Champions League semis, quarters, finals, what have you?
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because we've had growing pains. The first year it definitely was, we started with 12 teams instead of going up to 16. We've had issues with one of our counties that won't let any of their teams play home games, so they have to play on the road. I've hosted extra games at my field because being the athletic director and close with my principal, she said, you can do the games here. That's great. I've hosted the finals at my school, anything we can do. So we've been growing as we go. Every year we try and add something. We added the girls last year, so now we have a girls Champions League. But what our plan is right now is that next year we invite college coaches to come this weekend to the games, but we are going to add a showcase event on the Sunday afterwards.
That's
and
awesome.
Since it's not, we're not allowed to play. Our high school teams aren't allowed to play on Sundays in Florida. But since it's an outside organization and we can run a showcase, and what we'll do is we'll take like 4 players from each team that plays in the Champions League, and we're going to run our own show.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I got a question here. Perry, I'm going to direct this towards you. So my question is this: in our backyard, high school season falls commensurate with the college season, and we had a show a little while back where we had Terry and Greg, Terry Mickler, Greg Keller, and Vader on Gavain, and Vader said something that just has always resonated with me when it comes to this conversation and the need to be creative and move the needle a little bit. And it was in regards to college pathway. Because he said 15 years ago, the quote, and I'm paraphrasing, his quote was, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, all these coaches would come to us and say, who do we need? Who do we have to have? Who do you got? And he says these days, when they come to him, the question is, who are we missing? And it was kind of this aha moment for me, which forced us to ask that question to a lot of our peers and guests that are D1, high-powered D1 coaches, Michigan State, Akron, et cetera. And they've all said the same thing, that they're predominantly looking in those MLS Next events at the MLS academies. The showcases are bigger, and specifically for states like Missouri that has fall overlap, it's really hard for them to justify scouting in the middle of a high school season. So with you guys, and Jared alluded to it, and I want to ask, do you believe that developing Champions League type events, does that become something that coaches, like yourself, David, ADs, can be more proactive in tracking down and bringing back the scouts to prove, hey, this is not just a throwaway district game or a conference game. These are the best. These are the kids. Are you using it in that vein moving forward?
I think that we would do whatever we have to do. I think we get lost in sometimes of what our as high school coaches are looking to do. We will try and do whatever we can for kids going. But being a former college coach, I wasn't going to go to very many high school games to watch a game when I could go to a showcase and go see hundreds of kids play. It's plain fact for number wise and recruiting wise and time wise and everything else. It's just, unless you're just babysitting a kid you saw at a showcase and now he's going to play and you're going to go there because it's between you and 3 other schools and you wanted to see him to see your face at every game and stuff like that. But our biggest thing is not that we disagree with the MLS Next, not at all, or MLS Academy stuff. We just think that there should be able to have some coordination between the two. Maybe something put in where a kid that there's 22 men on a roster and they're only dressing 18 for games and these kids aren't even dressing for games, that would say, hey, let's work with the coaches and be able to say, hey, high school, you guys played 20 games in high school. He's got to play 10 in order to be able to qualify for the state series. So yes, let's get together. We'll sit down and schedule. We'll limit his practice time potentially, or games that he plays in. But let's work together between the clubs and the high schools and work for kids, not just work
That
for
makes sense.
the elite kid that's there.
Yeah, that makes a whole hell of a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
okay, Perry, this question is for you.
Sure.
Do you think that the collective we, clubs, academies, high schools, those that are making the decisions, specifically parents, club coaches, directors, high school coaches, do you think that maybe we're like focusing on the wrong thing? Because one thing you talked about earlier was kind of the emotional side, the empathy, the emotional side of your path. Because me, I love playing high school, and it was the people in the stands, and I can't put my finger on what it really meant to me or how it really helped me. But do you think that maybe things like the Champions League and maybe reframing the narrative, do you think there should be an emphasis on the kids' enjoyment over pathway, over development, maybe culture? Because there's a whole other side of this debate that everybody always ignores, and that is, that scene, the community. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, again, obviously from when I played and where we're at now, it's, I keep telling people that, the landscape's changed. Back when I was playing high school soccer, real quick, was, club wasn't going on. They'd take a break and then, you just played high school soccer.
Us too.
So now, obviously, they kind of compete a little bit, or actually a lot. So, you got players that are having to make decisions, and are they making the decisions or are the parents making them for them?
Right.
And again, when they're making those decisions, it's all about, okay, so, and again, I always tell them, look, you can be told one thing, but at the end of the day, there's no guarantees. All right. So it's just like, using the conversation where if a parent came to me and says, hey, my son's been approached by another club. And at the end of the day, it's a premier club. It's MLS Next. Okay. The first words I would ask is, what does your son want to do? Or what does your daughter want to do?
Right.
They're going to go there, and obviously, maybe they're not going to play. They're not going to, have as much fun as they are here. Their friends aren't there. They're all here. So what's important at this stage, of their career and where they're going? So, you bring up the pathway. I mean, there's different pathways. Yeah. Everybody has a different pathway. I mean, I chose the one to come out of high school, but I look at the Jimmy Teagens, the Johnny Hayeses, and Mark Fredericksons, and those, phenomenal players in St. Louis when I was growing up, that they just, they chose to go to college first. And then after that, obviously they went and played and had a very, very successful careers. So it's just, that's an interesting question, JB. And I think it's important for these parents to know that, you think you're making the right decision, and all of a sudden, they get into a system, a culture where, one, they didn't know they were getting into it. They weren't sure about it. And now all of a sudden, 3 years later, there's so much pressure that they're out of the game.
Yeah.
All right. They're, that's what happens.
Yeah. Hey, David, I got this question for you. Again, we're 6 years into this, 7 years into this league, this Champions League. JB referenced it with talking about the kids. How have the kids received it?
Yeah. That was gonna be my question.
Talk about the kids. Talk about the schools that are in it year after year, the coaches, the
bragging rights.
Yeah, just the whole culture around it, because high school is big on culture, big on playing for the brand. Has this put the brand and the crest for the high school on steroids some?
Yeah, it definitely has, and I think that there's some decisions we made early on, or I made early on. Jim was took the first few years after handing it off to me, and then he came back after the first few years. But I the very first year, I decided when we give the Champions League trophy out, it's going to be a spectacular trophy. It's going to be a big trophy, and it's going to get the name like a Stanley Cup does on it. And then we're going to transfer it from one school to the next after they hold it for a year. And the trophy is named the Jim Hart Trophy.
That's awesome.
Established the league, 6 state championships here. He was a great candidate. When we added the girls tournament last year, it's the Vicky King Trophy, and Vicky's an icon in Florida. Has won more games than anybody else. He's still coaching at Land O'Lakes High School. but we made it something that was like a prized possession when you got it. And I think kids got it the first year. Now we get all Final Four people. They get medals that are the Champions League logo and the medals onto them. There's an MVP trophy, and we had it. The Peak family has donated a boys and a girls scholarship each year, which is a $2,500 scholarship, which is called the 11th or the 12th man scholarship.
Nice.
I'm
That's
very
awesome.
fortunate that I'm not on the committee that votes, but I did have a player that was selected and it changed his life. He wasn't going to go to college, and he got the scholarship, and he could afford to go to a community college now here, and he's being a radiologist now, and it just changed his life for him. We've found from the last few years that when you get into the Champions League, it's a big deal here. And if you're out, we have coaches that are saying, "Hey, if anybody drops out, let me know because we want to get in." And it's the strength of schedule changes in Florida now with the rankings and how you do the regionals and things. It helps your strength of schedule. And kids now are getting to this weekend, and a lot of them were supposed to go to the IMG Cup this year or last year, and they're not going anymore. They're coming. They're playing in the
I
Champions
was
League
going to ask
finals.
that next.
It's a big deal.
So do you have pictures of the winning kids carrying the trophy around like the Stanley Cup? Are they drinking liquid death out of the top in the hallways?
Or are kids specifically picking high schools? Have you seen any trend that kids are picking high schools that have been
Perennial visitor,
Champions League participants?
Yeah, we haven't really seen that too much at all. It's not like here in football. It's like it happens a lot where all of a sudden all the kids go to one school and they win a state championship, and there's nobody lives within 10 miles of the school. Soccer wise, it really doesn't happen too much in Florida as far as kids switching schools. But we do have, Jesuit has won 3 of our our Champions League titles here, and they're just a powerhouse every year. And someone knocking them off or getting a draw with them in pool play is like it's a win for them.
Yeah.
But their kids go there. Tampa Prep has won it, and
Prep
Tampa
looks
Prep
good this year.
Oh, Tampa Prep is loaded this year, and Asher. I can't even think what Asher's last name is. He's one of the best players in Florida. He's going to USF next year to play, and he's not playing MLS anymore because he wants to play high school his senior year.
Can you confirm or deny that the trophy here is going to be called the Greg Keller Trophy?
That is completely up to them there. So,
Yeah.
Terry Mickler might have something to say about that.
Work to put this together. I mean,
He has.
Very
He really has.
All right, his heart is behind it.
That's awesome.
Well, guys, we are approaching the end here, and I we could go on and on and on, but I know you guys have lives. I mean, you're down in Tampa. It's like nighttime fishing time. Get out there, and enjoy the scenery. Go ahead, Jared.
I got one question for you, Perry. For all of the miles and countries and teams and clubs, coaching and playing, JB often asks if you can define it. 2-part question. We'd like your definition of what you think it is in a young boy or girl, or even a pro boy or girl. And then also, after you define it, can you tell us the person that you either coached or played with that has the highest level of it in your eyes?
Well, in talking to younger players, I think it's obviously the question being, what's important, and I think is all about opportunity. And just being, you got to be prepared. So, whatever, level you're playing at, whether it's in high school, whether it's in MLS next, you just, you get out of it what you put into it. I just hate to sound like somebody else's parent, but it's the truth. All right. And again, it's just, I've played with many, many players, and again, it's just hard to single out one, Jared. I've had a lot, when I came here to the Rowdies, we had some very famous players that played for England, played for their country.
Well, how about this? You went to the World Cup as a teenager in '74 in West Germany, and then 4 years later, you were playing against Franz Beckenbauer and Gerd Muller.
Right.
Those guys might have had it.
Yeah. No, those definitely had it. I got Johan Cruyff's jersey, and you got Giorgio Chiellini, and played against George Best, and you played against Michel Platini. We played when I was playing for Team America in 1983. Juventus. It came over here to play in a friendly. And again, there was like 3 or 4 guys that came from St. Louis just to see the game. And I was able to get some of their jerseys. But, here's Italy just won the World Cup. So playing up top Juventus, you got Paolo Rossi, right? You got Boniek playing on the wing. You got Lutini in the midfield, Marco Tardelli. And, there's a star-studded team. And again, afterwards, hey guys, let's just go have a few drinks afterwards. Let's just be friends and things like that. So, those are the players that I was, had the opportunity to play against. But again, it goes on, Jared. And again, it all started back in St. Louis. And I just want to say one thing here. I cannot thank you gentlemen enough for having David and myself on your program. All right. Just what you guys are doing as a podcast to grow the game, to spend your time. It's just fantastic, everything you guys do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Perry. That means a lot coming from someone like yourself, because we stumbled into this thing. We joke about it. We were going to kill time because the kids are at practice all the time. So let's put a couple beers and microphones, and I believe this episode will be number 108 or 107. Something.
Wow.
And you look at our guest list. I was joking with somebody the other day. It's becoming the encyclopedia of primarily St. Louis soccer, but we're expanding it. So to have yourself on and David, with what you guys are doing down there and what has been slingshotted up into our market, there's a lot of people that are going to want that are going to listen, and they're going to be like, "That's cool." Because so many of the families and people and individuals that, engage our show, they played high school soccer or they have kids that are doing it, and it's special here. So what you guys are doing by pushing the envelope, it's going to go a long way. So I can't thank you guys enough for joining us.
Yeah, and I'll second with saying that I'm a fan first. I did play the game. I have a son that's playing. He will eventually move on with his life, and I cannot wait till our high school Champions League gets going, because as a fan first, I will go to these games. I mean, what you guys did down there and what's coming up here, thank you guys. Thank you, David. I can't wait to talk to Mr. Hart. What a great idea. And these coaches that are up here, they're very, very capable, as you know them all. They're going to take this ball and run with it, and they're going to do a good job.
Yep.
They are. In fact, when I reached out to Greg, I says, my understanding you guys are starting in September. As soon as you know the dates, let me know. And I think Greg has, an idea of inviting, some of our generation, maybe the generation before us and the generation after to, some of the first games, just to be present and just to watch this thing take off. So I'm really looking forward to it.
That'd be awesome. Hey, Perry, next time you're back in the Lou for any of this or any other reason, you got to hit us up. We'll come and get some Urban Chestnut beer and pizza, right? We'll do that.
I love it.
It's our treat. And David, you're more than welcome to come along, man, because the pizza and beer down there in Florida, it's not the same. We got you covered up here.
All right. Sounds good.
Well, actually, since St. Louis City started, I went to the home opener, and I've been back to St. Louis probably 10 times since March.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, you gotta hit us up, because we're season ticket holders. So we're next season.
Great atmosphere.
We'll all do it. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm gonna roll us out here with some more Tom Petty in honor of the Floridians. Do you consider yourself a Missourian, a St. Louisan, a Floridian? What are you these days, Perry?
I was born and raised in St. Louis. I've been here most of my life. I came here when I was 18. I'm now 64. But, it's just always good to go back. And, when I get back, go down to Scott Gallagher and watch games with Steve Chichu and Jeff Davis and Steve Petcher and Larry Hulser and, the guys you grew up with playing and stuff like that. I came back for Pete Sorber's birthday when he turned 94.
I heard that was a great night, man.
Hey, Jared, did you notice whose name he named first? Good old Granite City boy.
Yeah, and you know what? I brought Stevie Chichu down here to play for the Rowdies.
I know. He was.
I brought him down here. Yeah, Steve and I are very close. And you're right. He's a Granite City boy. And he's a good player. Good person.
Well, let me ask you this, because his hips are destroyed. So is that because he trained with you? So did you just tie him up in pretzels?
Just grind him.
Because he can't move hardly.
Steve, I'll tell you what. Steve was one of those guys, he gave it everything he got. So,
another thing about him is he's coaching. He's an excellent coach.
Yeah,
he's
so
great around the age group of kids that he's coaching. He's a really good plus for and like in St. Louis, you had it. You referenced your coaches. This generation will also be able to go back and be like, I had Steve Trichu coach me. You know what I mean?
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, boys,
so I was sitting there one Sunday real quick, and I ran into Ken Godat, and I know of Ken. Obviously got some years on him, and I just watched him what he was doing in one of his sessions at Scott Gallagher. And then, we actually kind of met up we're watching one of the academy games, and he says, Perry, he says, your coach Vince Drake, when he was coaching us and his son, he says he would always, reference you and a couple players for Aquinas. So it was always like, here we are, looking at players. And I can say many names because when I played club soccer, it was the St. Louis City or St. Louis County League.
Yep.
Then you had the Pepsi League, the Florissant Celtics and the Florissant Cougars. And that's where Steve Petcher and I, we just go round and round. But going to Pete Starver's birthday party is an absolute,
it was a time warp.
North County, South County, we all get together. We just talk soccer.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, we look at it, and we're at the point now here. You're talking 3 generations.
Yes.
Like Sorber's in particular. His son now is entering back into the mix to take a chance, go play pro, and you got Pete, then Mike, and now his son. It's crazy. So we could go on and on and on. I really want to go ahead and let you guys off the hook here, so we don't ruin your dinner and after dinner drinks here. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll definitely be in touch, Dave. I'm going to be following Champions League closely because I think it's cool as hell, and I wish you guys the best of luck in continuing to grow it because I have a feeling it'll thrive here.
It will absolutely thrive. Who wins your Champions League? If you had to bet your house payment on it, who wins it?
Well, on the boys' side, I'd take Tampa Prep this year, and on the girls' side, I'll go with Palm Harbor. They won it last year, and they're really strong again this year. But Sunlight girls also could give them a run.
Nice.
Okay, last question, Perry. Does Tampa Prep beat the St. Louis winner? TBD.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that game. That's a tough call. But again, I would love to see that game.
That would be so much fun.
I really would.
Hey, gentlemen, we're going to let you go
I'd like
ahead.
to make that work someday.
Oh, I would love it. We would definitely go to that one. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to go ahead and let you guys bounce off. We're going to close it out here on our side. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Thank you for listening, and we appreciate all the likes, shares, views, all that free stuff. Because I don't see anybody here buying us beers, right, Jared?
Shine's going to get this tab.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Hey, happy holidays. Happy holidays. And thank you very much.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Thank you, Perry. Thank you, David. We'll catch up with you guys next time.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys have been fantastic. Thanks.
Awesome.
All right,
take
take
care.
care.
Bye, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Stay here.
All right. Get that. We are back. We didn't go anywhere, actually. What do you think, Jared?
I think you kind of referenced it. We've referenced it in other shows. The most exciting part about it is let's take the arguments away from...
Hit the red button.
Hit the red button.
Yeah,
let's take the arguments away from everything about which pathway is right or wrong. It's just there's in the Southeast, in a very rich soccer community, and then moving here shortly or already moved here, there is another group of other soccer leaders that are doing something cool.
Yep.
So, how can you hate on it?
Well, you can't. And I think that, and I tried to lean into that whole progress, change. Just do something different, because there's only so many things you can do for so long at the top of the pile until you're on the wrong pile. You're not changing, and that's kind of look. High school soccer has been great. It's always great. Every single year, there's great stories. There's great experiences, pathways, winners, losers, all of that. But within the broader world of youth soccer, competitive soccer, there was another race that was going on that was advancing much further down the field.
We've had multiple people say this from multiple different communities in our soccer world. College coaches, high school ADs, David today, the high school coaches we've talked to here. The most exciting part about it is since change is happening on that side, is at some point when these groups work together for the betterment of the kid, meaning that I loved his reference, 22 on the roster, you can have 18 dress. Well, a lot of times that 5 to 7, that number is the kids that are in that mix that aren't dressing. Well, why not get them meaningful games and work together?
Yeah,
and when that all changes, that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think this has ever been, for me, all or nothing. because I wanted to see change. I'm fully in a particular camp when it comes to the true accelerated kids. There's diminishing returns if they chose anything other than where they're at. However, the vast majority are not in that camp. So now it's their prerogative. It's their household. It's their personal choices with their parents and the clubs and everybody else involved for them to do whatever they want to do. That's called choice, right? Mm-hmm. However, things like Champions League now, there's a bigger carrot on the stick. You know, a little bit more intriguing than what was there 5 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. So it was cool. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate you joining me tonight. And thank you to Urban Chestnut, John Shine. You guys kill it every time. Explore STL. Toss down some Grove options. The Grove trifecta. Just stay close. H2, any of those. But get your sandwich at Gramophone. Have some beers at a festival out on the street. Then come down the block. Have a nightcap at Urban. And a slice of pie to go. And you win.
You can't beat it. And I'm looking at the bar here. They have a Tom Byer soccer ball on the bar.
Yeah, I saw that.
All right, man.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're on the way out. Catch you next time.